Hey there, I'm Carrie, and in this video I'm going to be talking about Animal Farm, chapters 1 and 2. I am not an English teacher, but I was an English major, and every now and then somebody hits me up for a little bit of help with their English homework. So I decided to put some of that in a video. Hopefully it will help you out. First I'm going to do some summary, and then some analysis and stuff you might see on a quiz or an essay question. So check out the timestamps in the video notes and skip ahead if you need something really specific. All right, so Animal Farm was originally published in 1945 by George Orwell. Not his real name, it's a pseudonym, so 10 points to Gryffindor if you drop his real name in the comments. It is an allegorical novel about the Bolshevik Revolution in the early years of the Soviet Union. Now, I'm going to talk some more about the historical setup behind the novel, but first, let's just jump right into a summary of chapter 1. So, it is midnight on Manor Farm, and Mr. Jones, the farmer, is passed out drunk. Old Major, the prize pig, one of the oldest animals on the farm, has called a meeting in the barn. He wants everybody to attend because he says he's got something super important to tell them. All the animals meet up in the barn, and Old Major tells them, okay, look, guys, I'm about to die, and I've got some wisdom I need to pass on. The wisdom is our lives are totally miserable. We are underfed, we're overworked, we're mistreated, and at the end of it all, we either end up on the dinner table or in the glue factory. This is not a good place for us to be. Then he points out, it doesn't need to be this way. Look at this amazing farm that we have. We have a great climate, good soil. There should be plenty to go around. So why isn't there? I'll tell you guys why. Because of humans. Humans are the source of our problems. We work all day, they gather up what we do, and they make themselves rich off of it while we practically starve. Now he jumps into his revolution talk. He's like, guys, if we would just overthrow the humans, our problems would be totally solved. We would be living in a paradise forever. And I think it's our destiny to overthrow the humans. In fact, we all need to make it our goals. The absolute goal of our lives is going to be eventually overthrow the humans and rule ourselves. This is the destiny of all animals. And he believes that it's gonna happen one day. So he cautions them, guys, once it does happen, be really careful to not ever become like the humans. He says this like 20 times. Do not become like them. We have no common goals. Before he closes out the meeting, he tells them about this song that he says he got from a dream. The song is called Beasts of England, and it's a catchy little tune, and it tells all about this future paradise that the animals are gonna live in once they've overthrown the humans. It's a fun song, everybody likes it, everybody starts singing it, wakes Jonesy, the farmer, up, he comes and busts up the party. That's the end of chapter 1. Chapter 2. 3 days after this, Old Major dies, just like he thought he was going to. Now, the pigs kind of take up the leadership mantle in his place, and they are headed up by two pigs called Snowball and Napoleon. Now, what the speaker, tells us about Snowball is that he's very inventive. He's got ideas. Napoleon, on the other hand, doesn't seem to have a lot of ideas, but he always seems to get his own way about things. Now, these two have kind of a sidekick. His name is Squealer, and he, the speaker tells us, is a brilliant talker. He's like in sales. He majored in marketing. He's somebody that you want on your team if you're trying to sell an idea. Now, the three of these pigs have gotten together. They've taken Old Major's original idea and they've expanded it into a whole school of thought called Animalism. And they start holding meetings on the barn where they teach the other animals about the principles of animalism. Now, anytime somebody's got a question, something's not really making sense, why should I care about this? The answer is usually because that's contrary to the spirit of animalism. In other words, because I said so. At the same time, the pigs are having a little bit of trouble keeping people's attention because Moses, the tame raven, has come along and started telling stories about Sugarcandy Mountain, which is kind of an animal heaven, the paradise where all animals go when they die. They're like, Moses, you are like distracting people. Shut up. Ignore Moses. Meanwhile, things are going down the tubes pretty quickly for Farmer Jones. He's become an alcoholic. He's lost a big lawsuit. His farm hands are cheats. They're not doing their work. His fields are overgrown. His animals are mistreated. It's not a great time to be on Manor Farm. And one night, it all comes to a head. It's the weekend. Jonesy has gone on a bender. The farmhands have gone out partying, and no one has fed the animals. By Sunday night, they can't take it anymore. One of the animals breaks into the feed room, and everybody follows, starts helping themselves to some animal feed. Of course, Jonesy wakes up at the worst time again. He and his men bust in with their whips, start to break up this feeding party. The animals are startled, they're hungry, they're desperate, they fight back. The farmer and his men have never seen this before, so they make a run for it. They flee the farm. The animals cannot even believe their good luck. The revolution has just happened with almost no planning on their part. It's crazy. So, revolution has happened. They decide to celebrate. They have a feast. They trash the harness room. They think about trashing the farmhouse, and they're like, no, let's keep it as a museum. About this time, the pigs have a little surprise for everyone. They're like, guys, did you know that we secretly learned to read and write? And we have taken animalism, our whole school of thought, and we've boiled it down into 7 commandments that we're all going to live by forever and ever. Amen. They paint the 7 commandments up on the side of the barn. Now, you may have this in a quiz, so let's actually read them off really quick. Okay, 7 commandments. Whatever goes upon 2 legs is an enemy. Whatever goes upon 4 legs or has wings is a friend. No animal shall wear clothes. No animal shall sleep in a bed. No animal shall drink alcohol. No animal shall kill any other animal. All animals are equal. All right. Once they've laid out the 7 commandments, they decide it is time to go get to the hay harvest. We're going to go harvest some hay. About this time, the cows break in and they're like, guys, we haven't been milked in like 2 days. We're about to die over here. And everybody's like, oh, right, of course. The pigs decide to figure out how to milk the cows really quick. And they've got, 5 buckets of like fresh milk with cream and everything. It looks pretty good. People are starting to look at the milk instead of out at the hay field. Maybe I'd like some of that milk. Napoleon steps in and like, guys, milk is not important right now. The hay harvest, guys, we need to go get that done. Ignore that. They're like, oh, right. Thanks, Napoleon. Let's go harvest some hay. Everybody heads out to harvest some hay. At the end of the day, they come back. The milk has mysteriously disappeared in chapter 2. All right, congratulations. If you are still with me, you just survived the Bolshevik Revolution. Now, as I said earlier, Animal Farm is an allegorical novel about the communist revolution in Russia, so let's talk really quick about some of the history behind that. So Karl Marx was a German philosopher, and in 1848, he published the Communist Manifesto. It's a political pamphlet that outlines the historical struggles of the working class, the problems that he saw with capitalism, and it was his belief that socialism would eventually overrun capitalism and become the dominant political system. Fast forward about 50 years. Heading into the 1900s, most of the European royal families were constitutional monarchies, meaning the king or queen was the head of state but didn't have a lot of direct political power. They had a prime minister and an elected parliament to actually do the work of running the country. Move over into Russia, the Romanovs, the royal family, they're not like that. The Romanovs are autocrats, meaning the czar, they don't have a king, they have a czar. The czar has absolute authority. The money and the resources goes where he says it will. The law says what he says it's going to say. The military does what he says they're going to do. He runs things. Now, coming into 1900, Tsar Nicholas II is in charge. Unfortunately, he's not great at what he does. And to make things worse, he's really, really not good with criticism. Whenever there is a protest, he puts it down very violently. He forms a parliament to help him out, and then he refuses to work with them. He strips them of their power. So it's not a great time to be in Russia, and then World War I comes along. World War I cuts Russia off from the rest of Europe, causing a massive food shortage. And to top it off, the war isn't going well for them. So war's going bad. Men are deserting the army by the thousands. Morale is at an all-time low, and now there's a food shortage, which the Tsar decides to answer with severe food rationing. One afternoon in February 1917, I've heard Russian winters can be kind of harsh. The people have had enough. There's an impromptu protest against food rationing, and the Tsar's men come out to meet it, to bust up this protest like they have in the past. Without any warning, the working people of the city unite and overwhelm the Tsar's forces. All hell just breaks loose in the city. 3 days later, Nicholas II is forced to abdicate. He and the rest of the royal family, which includes his daughter, the very famous and much debated Princess Anastasia, they are arrested, imprisoned, and later shot. In the aftermath of all this, the Communist Party takes control in Russia. It's led by a guy named Vladimir Lenin. Now, Lenin has got some ideas. He is an idea guy. He wants some reforms, and some of them are awesome. The first thing he wants to do is limit the workday to 8 hours. You're not going to run your workers into the ground anymore. 8-hour workday. All these kids, they need to be in school. Every Russian child is going to have an education. On the state's tab, we need to educate our people. They're really good ideas. He's ready to make things happen. What could possibly go wrong? All right, we will check in with more history later on. Let's get back to the novel and do some analysis and some essay work. So, chapter 1, very first sentence, Jones is drunk. He's so drunk that he doesn't remember to secure the chicken coop. This is important for a couple reasons. It lets us know things aren't going well on Manor Farm. The animals are not safe. By not securing the chicken coop, foxes and other creatures could get in, kill the chickens, steal the eggs. So not only are the animals unsafe and neglected, but Jones doesn't even know enough to protect his own livelihood. This is his only source of income. So, not only is he mistreating his animals, he's also painted as an idiot who's not even taking care of himself. So right up front, we know that their grievances are very real. There are real problems on the Manor Farm. So we get to the meeting, and the speaker, the narrator, spends a lot of time telling us how the animals line up to hear Old Major's speech. Now, when the speaker spends this much time focusing on something, it's going to be important later on. So you need to pay attention to it. Let's go through the order really quick. So we got Old Major up front on a speaking platform to address the people out here, the animals, sorry. Right up in front are the dogs and the pigs. They are front and center right in front of Old Major. Next to come in the barn are the herd animals. That's like the sheep, the cows, also the chickens and the pigeons. Animals that tend to travel in very large groups. The last ones to come in are the beasts of burden, like literal beasts of burden. These are the muscle on the farm. It's the cart horses, the goat, the donkey. These are the animals that are the literal muscle of Manor Farm. And the fact that the speaker spends so much time lining this out, it kind of predicts how power is going to be distributed later on in the book. So like I said, pay attention to that. So let's get to Old Major's speech. Now, we already talked about what he has communicated to the animals. So let's talk a little bit about how he gets everyone on board, how he gets them all excited about his message. The first thing that Old Major does is establish some credibility. He reminds everyone he's one of the oldest ones on the farm. He's had a lot of time to think about this. And he establishes further credibility by opening with telling them things they already know. We've got problems here on Manor Farm. He reminds them of what they already know to be true. And while he's doing this, he's creating a team. He's making an us. He doesn't use a lot of words like I, me, you, them. He uses we, us, our. We are one. These are our problems. It is our concern. It's everyone's concern. So he's created a team. We are the good guys. At the same time, he creates an other. He makes an other team. He makes the bad guys. And the bad guys are the humans. Now, he doesn't pick on Jones specifically because Jones has some particular problems that are individual to him. He's got a drinking problem. He just lost a lawsuit. That is not common to all humans. So he points to the things that are. They're too weak to pull a plow. They're not fast enough to run a rabbit out of the field. He's saying things that are true about humans and making them into problems. He's saying, because of these weaknesses, they abuse us. So he's creating an other team. This is an us versus them. There is no gray area here. You can't be in the middle. You're either with them or you're with us. All right, so that's kind of a way to energize people. He's making two teams. It's a game, not a team. It's not a game. It's a battle, us versus them. All right, then he introduces Beasts of England. Now he's careful to say like, hey, I got this from a dream, like about my mom. It makes it very dramatic, like I'm about to die, and so our animal ancestors have reached from beyond the grave to give me this wisdom, and now I'm giving it to you. Makes it very dramatic, makes it seem very important. Now, yeah, so important message, but also Beasts of England is like a super catchy song, and it gets in people's heads, and it kind of goes viral. Like it's a very good way to pass a message along, to pass along information. You know, it rhymes, it's fun to sing. The person next to you hears you singing it and they start singing it. They carry the message elsewhere. It's a great propaganda tool. And it's also like a team chant. We talked about the us versus them. It's a team chant. It's a battle cry to really keep people's heads in the game, keep their spirits up. All right, so that's chapter 1. Let's move to chapter 2. All right, in chapter 2, I think the really important thing to look at is how the pigs start to consolidate power and take control of things even before the revolution happens. So after Old Majors dies, the speaker tells us that the pigs naturally took control because they're considered to be the most clever. Now, he harps on this throughout the book. We're constantly told how clever they are and how important and how natural it is for them to take the leadership. The thing is, he doesn't give us any proof of that up front. It kind of reminds me of, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, Tywin Lannister has this amazing line where he said, anyone who has to say, I'm the king, is not a true king. He's saying, you know, if you've got the power, if you've got the know-how, if you've got the goods, you shouldn't have to tell anyone. We should see the proof in action. Now, Orwell kind of does the same thing here. He doesn't harp on how strong Boxer is, for example. We don't need him to harp on it. We already know Boxer's strong because we know how many rocks he can lift. We know how long he can work. We know how big his muscles are. We have proof in action, so the speaker doesn't need to harp on this. So if he finds something that he does need to harp on, how clever the pigs are, how important it is for them to be leaders, what does that kind of imply about them? So keep that in mind. All right, next let's talk about Napoleon and Snowball, two different leadership styles that are gonna knock heads later on. Now, why do they get to be the leaders? Why is it so natural for them to be the leaders? With Snowball, it's kind of implied he's the same kind of pig as Old Major. Old Major, we're told, is a middle white boar, which is an all-white breed of pig. Snowball, from his name we can infer, is an all-white pig. So yeah, he kind of looks like Old Major. He kind of sounds like Old Major. He's kind of latching on to Old Major's legend and making himself the sort of natural leader after that. Napoleon is the guy that everybody assumes he's smart because he doesn't talk a lot. He's always very serious and he always seems to get his way. Is it because he's smart or because he knows how to strong arm people? We don't really know. Their third wheel, Squealer, is kind of the classic propagandist that you really want if you're trying to sell a revolutionary idea. The speaker tells us that Squealer could turn black into white. What he's literally telling us there is Squealer can make you believe something that is not true. If you are trying to sell something, Squealer is the guy you want because he can make something that is awful seem like something good. He can make you believe something that isn't correct. So we've got the idea man, the strong man, and the front man, and they are going to sell animalism. So animalism, again, why is it their task to come up with this whole school of thought that everyone has to follow? You know, are they teaching the other animals or are they training the other animals? Is this education or is it brainwashing? That's something to think about maybe for an essay question. Also, in these meetings where they're teaching, you'll notice all the questions kind of get hit with the stupid label. Everybody's asking stupid questions like, why should I care about this? If it's not going to happen in my lifetime, why should I spend energy on this? The pigs don't have an answer for it. So they hit it with, that's contrary to the spirit of animalism. It's kind of a because I said so. It's right because I said so. You have to do it because I said so, because of reasons, because the pigs control animalism. They've created it. It's their idea. It can say whatever it is they want it to say. And if someone has a difficult question, they'll just step around it by saying, obviously that's wrong. That's a form of control, is ridiculing people that question you. You embarrass them in front of the room. You hit them with the stupid label. It'll quiet people down really quickly. No one likes to be humiliated. The other person that's kind of questioning them, the other character, I should say, that's questioning them is Moses, the tame raven. Now, they don't like this Sugarcandy Mountain that he's talking about, this kind of animal heaven. That's probably for a couple of reasons. A, Sugarcandy Mountain is a place that you get to after you die. It's way in the future. The pigs don't want the animals focusing on that. They want their heads in the here and now. They need their heads in the game if they're going to make this revolution happen. Don't focus on something way in the distance. Focus on what's right in front of you. The other reason they probably don't like Moses is because this is a character that's also claiming to have knowledge that no one else has. The pigs have animalism. That is the knowledge they have that none of the other animals have access to. Moses, with Sugarcandy Mountain, is saying that he also has knowledge that no one else has access to. It makes him a potential competitive leader. This is a competitive influence. Now, again, revisit Tywin Lannister on Game of Thrones. If you've really got the goods and you've really got the power, you don't mind any competition because the proof is going to be in the pudding. If you don't got the goods, you don't got the power, you better shut up anybody who comes to challenge you. All right, so let's fast forward to after the revolution. The first thing that they do once the humans are run off the farm is they trash the harness room. Now, the harness room is kind of seen as Jones's control room. It's full of all of the physical tools that he uses to control the animals. So the dog collars, the chains, the bits, the bridles, the feed bags, those all get trashed. We don't want any evidence of human control here. Get rid of those things. The whips are particularly highlighted. They are not in a list. That's a standalone sentence that they destroyed the whips. Again, if the author brings that much attention to something, it's going to be important later on. So remember that. They also toss their ribbons that go in the horse's manes and the little hat that Boxer wears to keep the bugs out of his ears. So they're also destroying some practical things. But remember, this is us versus them. There is no gray area here. There's no room for any argument. So if the hat, even though it's practical, could be seen as something invented by the humans, gotta get rid of it. All right, so also at this point, the pigs kind of surprise everyone with, hey, we taught ourselves to read and write over the last few months. Why didn't they teach everybody else? Again, they're consolidating the knowledge. They're consolidating education, making sure that there's a bank of resources, that they're the only ones that have access to it. The first thing they bring out is the 7 commandments. Now, the speaker says, by their studies, they had succeeded in creating these 7 commandments. That's kind of the pigs gift wrapping the 7 commandments for them. Instead of saying, we created some laws, you guys don't get a hand in it, you don't get a say in it, you don't get to argue about it, you're just going to live by these laws that we have picked out, that we have decided. They don't put it like that. They say, we've done all this hard work, we've trained so hard and studied so hard, and we've been able to create this, and it's so great, and we're going to share it with you. They gift wrap it for everyone so it doesn't look like control. So that's another way that they kind of consolidate power. Something else that they do, misdirection. The last bit of the chapter is the story of the milk that mysteriously disappears. Now, when the other animals start looking at the milk and they're like, oh, that looks good, I think I might like some of that, Napoleon doesn't jump in and say like, no, nobody gets it. This belongs to me. It belongs to the pigs. Because he might get some pushback that way. Instead, he distracts them and says, guys, this is so not important. Now that, the hay harvest, that is important, guys. Look at that. And when everybody says, oh yeah, and looks the other way, That's when he takes the goods, he takes the milk, the privilege, and he does what he wants with it. And by the time anyone figures it out, it's too late to do anything. So, yeah. Ridiculing or villainizing your opponents, gift wrapping, methods of control, reinforcing the idea of the other team, the other guys, and misdirection. These are all things that the pigs use to kind of control the farm. All right, so last thing I want to touch on, because it might be on a quiz or a test, you've probably already figured out a lot of the historical figures that these characters represent. But just really quick, let's run through some of the big ones. So Farmer Jones is Tsar Nicholas II. He mismanages the country and he gets forced out. Old Major is a mashup of Karl Marx and Vladimir Lenin. He has the original idea, but he doesn't really have any information on how it's going to be carried out and how it's going to play out in the future. Snowball is a guy called Leon Trotsky. He's also a little bit of Vladimir Lenin. Trotsky and Lenin actually were the military commanders in the Bolshevik Revolution. They led that together, and they had a lot in common. They were both idea guys. They both wanted to organize. They both wanted to bring in some reforms. Napoleon is a little dude called Joseph Stalin. Became one of the most brutal dictators in modern history, but he's a great political strategist. He knows how to get things done. Squealer, there is a historical figure that Squealer might be based on. Stalin had a right-hand guy called Molotov. Molotov was a newspaper man. He sold stories. But really, I think Squealer could just be any minister of propaganda, any great sales tool that you really need if you're going to push the idea of an overthrow, of a revolution. Moses is the Russian Orthodox Church. So they were originally banned in the Soviet Union. Religion was banned, but a few years down the line when Stalin started to figure out he might have a little purpose for them, they might be kind of useful, he brought the Russian Orthodox Church back. Boxer and Clover, the cart horses, are the proletariat, meaning the working class, the peasant working class. They're the actual physical labor power on the farm. So it's important for the pigs to really get them on board with the whole idea behind this. Benjamin the donkey is the skeptic. Some literary critics think that he represents George Orwell himself. Orwell believed in socialism. He did not believe in communism. He didn't think it was going to end well. So some people see Benjamin, who kind of observes and comments but never really gets on board, as George Orwell. Molly, the carriage horse, I call her the privileged dissenter. She may not have like a direct historical counterpart. Mainly, she's privileged. She's okay with the way things are before the revolution. She's not really down to fight with Jones because she has life pretty good. And the pigs, that's a dissenter. So she gets regularly called the stupidest one on the farm just because she's not really into the idea of revolution. All right, so that's all I've got for you. If I went too fast or I glazed over something, you've got a question, go ahead and drop it in the comments, and I will see you in the next chapter. Bye.